Hello, my friends, and welcome into another episode of the Faithful Business Podcast. I have a real treat for you, a fantastic interview with Wouter Droppers. Now, Wouter has come alongside leaders in the business world for more than 35 years. He served as the president of several companies in the automotive sector, and he's currently the president of Euro Partners, a European movement for Christian business leaders where he advises, supports, and encourages Christian entrepreneurs throughout Europe about the topic of faith and business. We had a terrific conversation about his new book, The Jerusalem Entrepreneur. It was great, and I think you're going to really love it. Go check it out. You can purchase the book easily on Amazon. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Wouter Droppers. Well, hey there, Wouter. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm excited to talk about this new book of yours. Well, I guess it's new. 2021. Is that when your book came
Yes.
out?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Very good. So the book is called The Jerusalem Entrepreneur, and the title itself jumps out right away. I'm a marketing guy. And so the title itself definitely jumps out right away to being like, yeah, this book is for me. I'm excited to read about it. And honestly, my experience was the longer I read, the more I went along, the more into it I got, right? The more it spoke to me and to my situation. And I was definitely able to identify with it. So we're going to talk a lot about the book, but before we do, I'd like to maybe zoom out a little bit and talk a little bit more about you, talk about your journey in business, talk about Euro Partners and what it is that you do there.
Good. Yeah, born and raised in the Netherlands. And my professional career, I started when I was 18 years old. And that was reselling spare parts for automobiles in a small shop, just as a normal employee. And throughout the line, I worked my way up to the top of the company. And when I was 28, I was part of the management team doing purchasing and marketing. And at that time, we had 120 stores scattered over the Netherlands and in Belgium. I think 100 million, purchasing power at that time. Then I moved to Volkswagen Audi, became president of several dealerships with leasing and financing, body parts, the whole dealership combination. I did that for another 6 years, and then I moved to the biggest reseller of cars in that time and became responsible for the Volvo and Range Rover brand within the Netherlands, within that body. And in 2007, I became president of CBMC. CBMC, you also know in the United States, it's called Connecting Business in the Marketplace to Christ. It's also in the Netherlands. It's a good ministry where the head office and staff are more than 100 groups scattered over the nation where people meet, pray, be accountable to each other, would like to become a source of well-being for the environment. And in 2015, I started to become president of Europartners. And Europartners is more or less the same. We help non-Christian business people get to know Christ, and we want to train the Christian business people to be very intentional about their faith in their leadership and in entrepreneurship. And out of that role, I traveled through all of Europe. We are connected in more than 40 nations in Europe. And it's a privilege to speak with people about faith, business, and where and these crossroads people have in their life, and to encourage them and help them to become generous, become good role models, and to be very intentional about that faith in their business and leadership.
Yeah, and I think that's such a needed thing because the it feels like the longer we go, the less welcome faith seems to be in business. At least by people who we might characterize as being from Babylon, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But
Yeah.
it's like even last night at our men's group at church, our pastor asked the question, what is one of the things that, stops you from being more of a witness about Christ? And one of the answers was inevitably, well, it's hard to do that at work. It's not very welcome. And so I always appreciate folks who are very intentionally figuring out that process, figuring out, well, how is it that we be a source for well-being in our environment around us? How is it that we share Christ maybe in an environment where it's hard to do so? So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We're going to talk a lot about that, and I'm excited to dive into the content of the book. So thank you for sharing all of that. So let's dive right in. So you do frame up two different kinds of entrepreneur in the book. So I would say, what are they and what are their differences?
Yes. And you have to know, I represent both entrepreneurs. I was the one in my life, I was the other one in my life, and currently I'm both in one. But just for the audience, uh, the first entrepreneur, what we call the Babylon entrepreneur, is the entrepreneur. He's focused on himself. Me, myself is the start of everything. Uh,
Mm.
he likes to compete with others. He likes to win. Uh, he's fond on status symbols. He would like to be seen. He would like to glorify himself. He would like to become the most powerful, the most important. Uh, has a little narcissistic uh, uh, inner being, and his credo is more or less the end justify the means. And that I contrast with an entrepreneur who's not so much focused on himself, but is more focused on the client. It's more how can we serve the client to our best abilities? What can we do for our staff to make them flourish? What can we do with our company to make life flourish in general on all levels? So he's have a more serving and loving character and is more focused on other people than the other entrepreneur. And you could say that his life motto is, how can we bring life to my staff, to my people, to all the stakeholders who are connected to this company? How can we help them flourish and give them a better life with everything God gave us before? And they are for focused on being than on doing. They are more focused on personal development and character development and outward performance. So you see that two difference in that way. And maybe in the book, I contrast them with one employer who fired 300 persons by mail because he thought, when I do that in this way, without scrupulous, it's very efficient. And he
Mhm.
was proud of that. To an entrepreneur who I heard speaking, and he had some manufacturing plants all over the globe. And he was so humble. And what his character was that people lined up before his office just to get his advice. And he was open to give him advice, advice to his competitors, advice to his staffs. And I'm like, wow, this guy really has great company, but he is still a very serving and humble heart that he allows people to take his time and to serve them on all levels of their being. And I think that two kind of people you will see in daily life as well. That a
Yeah.
good example or a current example we had in Europe that Queen Elizabeth was passed away, and when she started her service, she said, "I'm here to serve the Commonwealth. I'm here not to reign, but to serve." And in contrast, also in Europe, you have a very big shipping company. And in the same week, he announced that he would like to dismiss another 300 people just by broadcasting to all the offices they had in Europe and said, and by this day, it will happen. And this evening, you will be out of the job. That kind of different thinking about business and about people and the value of people, I think that is the main characteristic.
Yeah, the word that comes to my mind when you say that is almost ruthless, right? Right,
Yeah.
it's almost, ruthless, almost totally uncaring. I would say that I'm curious what you think about this because, I know a lot of people, and I know you do talk about how there's a little bit of a difference between, say, a Jerusalem entrepreneur and then a Christian Jerusalem entrepreneur. You may have somebody who's not necessarily a Christian, but they're living according to the principles of what you would define as a Jerusalem entrepreneur. And maybe this falls into that. But I'm thinking about, as I read this book, I I was looking for, and sometimes it's not very hard to see, but I was looking for the Babylon in myself, right? Where am I? Where do I show up more like Babylon than I do, Jerusalem? And I would say for me, I would never be the guy who, and I'm guessing some of the people who listen to this could identify, right? I would never be the guy who would send a 300 person memo, right? That was basically like, you're fired. I would never do that. However, there is a lot of business advice out there that talks about, I guess if I were to put it simply, a closed door sort of environment versus an open door sort of environment. Like you mentioned, the guy who lines up and gives his time, people line up for his advice. He gives his time to people. But then, of course, there's always that balance you have to contrast with, well, I only allow my calendar to be taken up by somebody for this amount of time because if I don't protect my time, nobody else is going to. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. There's always that balance between protecting your time and your availability and then being freely available to serve others. Does that make sense?
Sure, sure. And I understand that, but the key question is, where is your heart?
Mm,
Uh, because if you balance your time between people and targets, then maybe your heart is too much in targets, because the people in itself could also be a target. And people
yeah.
in itself is maybe the call of our as for us as entrepreneurs to serve them. And we give a product or a service to serve people. So the main goal in our mindset must be people. How can I serve these people? And when I serve people in another way, I also do something that my hearts long for in serving. So as long as I serve, and sure, I have a certain role as an entrepreneur. I serve within a certain context as an entrepreneur, and I need to guide that role as well. But it's the same with the story of Jesus when this woman came from the northern territories, from Lebanon, from Tyre or Sidon, and she was asking to get healed. And Jesus said, "But I only came for the Jews." So, and then he
Right.
said, "The dogs also eat from the brambles under the tag." Your role
Yeah.
is always bigger than where you are defined. And another very good example is uh, the compassionate Samaritan, the merciful Samaritan. He was
Yeah.
a business person. He saw someone laying at the streets. He took him, but he did not spend all his time or all his money or whatever in it. And then he left him in a refuge and said, "If you take care of him, I will pay." And he moved on with his own life and with his own role.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think we when we are not touched anymore by compassion, or if we see people like this merciful Samaritan, and we cannot get off the road from ourselves just to pay attention there because it's needed, it's called for. You see it, and you are there at a certain time, and God puts this person on your, yeah, in your way. You should take care of him. Sure, you're not fully going and give him all your time. You give him where he is the best, in refuge, because
Yeah.
there are people who can take care of him, and you as a business person probably will not know how to deal with it and what to do with it. So better pay this guy some money that he's taken care for, and leave him where it is the best. And I think that kind of
That's good
attitude,
insight.
you always have the even in your busy business schedule, the opportunity to stop and to change your schedule because a need or a person is calling you. I think that's important.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I love the Bible. Those are two great examples that you don't really think of as applying to business, but they sure do. They really do. That's fantastic. So, how would you say then? You talk about this in the book. You talk about success um, in one versus the other. So, how has your personal definition of success changed the more you move from Babylon to
Yeah.
Jerusalem?
Yeah. Initially, my personal success was I want to have business success and have personal success to gain recognition, that people would see me, that people would value me, that I would be in their presence, that I belong to the people I admire, or I thought they are the leaders of this world, or I should be there. And what I discovered in my life over time, and I only discovered it in my age of 40 when I was reflecting on my life, that basically that behavior came back from making myself seen to my parents. I come of a small family. I have an older sister. She's very responsible. I have an older brother. He's also very responsible. He walked in the steps my dad did, and my dad was a good entrepreneur. And I was the youngest, a little spoiled, but also a little the rebel. I did all the ways, the things my mother disliked, and she was sincerely worried, will this young adult really be successful in life, and will he walk the paths I long for it? And that worry I took maybe wrongly as something I have to prove myself to my mom. And I think from that point, that deep root, came all my performance-driven time, work to prove myself. I think many entrepreneurs start in that way. They would like to prove themselves, to show, here I am, I can do it. See me, mine, see my dad, see environment that I can do it. And what you also, when successes stay away for a longer time or for a certain period, you have the tendency to cut corners because you want these tangible successes. It becomes like an addiction. And every time you want to celebrate a new success. And basically, you start to see yourself as your latest success. If you are that gripped by performance and by being seen, then you see yourself only in your latest success. And it could be that 1 month later, when someone else is better and you are forgotten already and you need to have this again. What I learned over time, and that was basically my life, and therefore I think I was very successful. I was really pushing the lines, we're really pushing people, I was really pushing performance. And I was in that time very successful, and I still think I'm very successful, but in a different way. Because what I learned were what. Now, let me first tell you, this brought me almost in a divorce with my wife. Always pushing, always performing, always seeing people as instrumental to your own ambitions, to your own goals. And she woke me up and she said, I don't like this behavior. You are a Christian, you go to church, but I see a complete different lifestyle in your life. And at that point in time, I did not recognize what she was talking about because I go to church. We had a good upbringing for the children. I give money away. We had a social enterprise. We did good work. We were generous. So I thought I did everything God told me and my parents told me. And so why is my wife complaining? And when she started to explain, she said, you don't see me as a person. You only love me because for what I'm giving to you. A good home, a nice upbringing for the children. I'm representative lady. I give you a lot. Therefore you love me. But you never ask me something about who I am and where I care for and what I do. And that opened up my eyes. I thought, whoa, this is a different way of looking to people. And then I recognized that basically clients became ATM machines or profit, and staff and employees were only production means or costs. And everyone meant something from my perspective to me. Now that opened my eyes slowly to look to another way to success. What is real success about? And for me nowadays, real success is about the phrase loving relationships. Am I able to love God? Am I able to love myself? And am I able to love others properly and well from inside, from my heart? And when you can do that, that will change your whole life. It will change your entrepreneurship. It will change who you are. It will change how people receive you. And out of that love, you can still be good entrepreneur. Because if you love your clients and you would like to serve them well for the good reasons, you give the best service there is because you love them. And you do with your staff and you do it with your suppliers. And so love can be another driver than I need to be seen. I need to have the recognition. That is also a strong driver, but that often drives you in a very narcissistic way of living. And love drives you, I think, in a proper way of living with the same results. So for me now, if you ask me what is success in life or business, being able to love God, love yourself and love your neighbor, being able to know others and being known by others and being able to love others and being loved by others. I think when you are in that position, that is a special and a privileged position to be in. And I'm happy I can live there now.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love what you said that love is also a driver of success, but you end up treating people right and getting the same results as if you had just done it for yourself. Or and I think you would probably say too in many cases even better results. That's fantastic. So all right, so you say that a Christian Jerusalem entrepreneur is someone who is called and equipped. This is your definition, called and equipped with talent, character, and personality traits to co create with God in the world of business for the greater good, God's righteousness, and for God's glory. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah. I don't have the phrase. Let me see where it is. call they create, that is, I think, very important. Uh, or call they equip, because you need to have some kind of calling. Uh, if you don't have the calling, if you don't have the purpose that is bigger than yourself, then you basically live only for yourself. And then you are like a small boat on the ocean where the wind blows, it brings you. And every suffering is painful because it doesn't glorify yourself or doesn't help yourself. And you only longing for the kicks. And calling gives you a purpose that is bigger than yourself. And when this calling is aligned with your talents, and with your heart, it's a lovely thing to do, because everyone would like to work in his talents and would like to work from what he feel in his heart, how life should be. And if you as an entrepreneur, and that's I think one of the big advantages as an entrepreneur, we are called to create. We can create things. We can make things. We can make things happen. And if you feel I'm called to make things happen and I can do it from my heart and with my talents, yeah, that is a special place to be. And sure, you can still create for yourself. Therefore, it's important that we co-create with God, that we feel God is in it as well. I think values we can share with many people, with Jews, with good humanism, with everyone. But to do what God wants you to do, that requires listening. That requires an open relationship with God. And to say, this company is not my company. It's God's company. These finances and this money is not my money. It's God's money. And that you, instead of praying in the morning, God, please bless all my efforts to make my company grow, that you pray, God, what do you want to do me today in your company? What do you want me to do with your money today? Where should I invest it? Where should I go to? And I met many people in my life who, for that reason, made different decisions. Said, "Oh, I will not invest it in the best place where it yields on the maximum level, but I feel I have to invest it in a poor nation in Eastern Europe, and maybe it doesn't yield so much, but I feel called to by God to put it there, and it will yield maybe in another way, maybe in a financial way. It will maybe have only a return of 2 or 3%, but it will have a return in lives of people, employment of people, people who you give a new future and a new living. And therefore is this co-creation with God, that God can speak in your business, can speak in your investment plans, can speak in your life, is very important, because then you co-create with God. And sure, as a business person, you do it in the world of business for the greater good. God created this earth for a reason. He would like to dwell on it together with us as human beings. And he would like it to be a good place. So everything God created in Genesis, you see afterwards, he saw it was good. So we want to act in the same way, to produce something that is just and that is good. It's not so hard to produce something or to make some money. Sure, sometimes can be difficult, but that's many times the easy part. But to do it in a good way, and to produce the good things that really mean something to people, and contribute to righteousness. Because I think the future world, the messianic kingdom where Jesus talks about, is full of righteousness. And righteousness means that everything comes to its place as God wanted to be. And imagine that every person you meet come to his destination because you invest them in that way. And that God say, now you bring my people to where they are. Now you give them the dignity I have in mind for them. Now you give them the position I have in mind. And there they can flourish, there they can do whatever they like to do. And I think that also contributes to God's glory, because that's basically what God is doing in his world and wants us to behave.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump ahead of myself a little bit because you talked about something so important there, specifically as it relates to feeling called to do something. I've always struggled with this. I'm not going to lie, because um, it's hard for me to realize, like I've heard people say, oh, like I'm whatever, like I'm called to go into the web design industry, or I'm called, and I don't know how that, to me, I don't know how that works, right? And I'm not going to speak for another person, but I don't know how it works for God to say you should be a web designer. I know that through the sovereignty of God, definitely came to that path. through my experiences of life, and I can see how the Lord lined it up, and now we're doing it. But you really helped me with something. You maybe not even put it in these exact terms, but what you talk about in the book as it relates to calling, it always seems to be more about the higher purposes, right? The higher ideal, right? Something more than just showing up to do the work. And I was having a really hard time for myself with this actually until I read it, until I read how you couch this in your book. And I'll be honest, I think it's really made a huge difference, and going to make a huge difference going forward. What I decided for me is that the word peace, right? Actually bringing peace on earth and being, it's actually very apropos in my business because like the way that I do business, I have a very different business model as a web designer, as a marketer than most others do. And the practical of it is well, we work together. It's called subscription web design. Like we work together on a monthly basis for the long term. That's the practical part of it. But honestly, the higher purpose part of it is the product is peace. The product is, yeah, like when you send an email or give us a call, like we'll answer and we won't leave you hanging like a lot of people do. And as I look and as I extend that principle in my own life and I look at my family life and the things that I want to bring to the world, it always comes back to that word peace. And so in a very real sense, I think it's safe for me to say something like I honestly feel called to bring peace into the world, right? To bring peace into the marketplace. Um, and that makes a big difference. So I think for anybody struggling with that idea of calling, I think my advice would be to think about what is it that the Lord wants you to bring to the world through your business? Like, what is that feeling, that emotion, that passion? That is such a higher driving force, in my opinion, than just showing up to do the work. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the work we're doing. I love the business we're in. I think we do great work for our clients. Um, but ultimately, it's got to be about more than the work. And I think
Yes.
you explained that well.
Um,
All right. So, I want to talk about how you do this. I was so glad after I read your description of a Jerusalem entrepreneur to see the next chapter because what you went into then was okay, well, this is all well and good, but how do you actually do this in a world that is basically Babylon? And you talked about Daniel, use the example of Daniel. So I'd love for you to just talk about being a Christian Jerusalem entrepreneur in a Babylonian world, how we can set ourselves apart.
Yeah, I think that the big advantage we have that the Babylonian world say we don't care about the means, we only care about the ends. And so the result counts. And that gives, it's often used in a wrong way, that people take shortcuts, but it also gives us the opportunity, like Daniel, to bring in the good values and the good examples and to show the world that you can also reach these goals in a complete different way. And, uh, and as a Christian entrepreneur, you have by utmost freedom because you are your own entrepreneur. But even when you work within a corporate or you work in a big company, more and more your boss is saying, I don't care so much, just get me the results. And and that gives us the opportunity to get the results in a different way. Well, like Daniel had with his a food processor, that he received the best food, that he received the best training, he received from everything the best. But he said, I think there is a better way, and let us try it. And when it shows to be a better way, allow me to do it on my own way. And his boss was very pragmatic, but also a little afraid because his head was at stake. They said, okay, I can give you some time to probation time to just to test it. And then he showed up to be more healthy, more wise, etc. I said, okay, we will continue. You can do it your way. And and in that way, he made a huge difference because everyone saw him moving in a different direction and do it in a different way. Now, the same, back to our daily business. Imagine that your boss said, I don't care, just give me the result, give me the turnover or whatever. So start to do it as a Christian. Start to do it as you believe you should do it. And get involved with your staff, get involved with the personal life, build a culture. And I think building a culture is basically the key because out of culture comes everything. Peter Drucker, he said, a culture eats strategy for breakfast, but I believe culture eats everything. The culture you build is key for your success. Do you build the right culture in your company? where people care about each other, where people feel valued, where people not only come for a paycheck anymore, but they come from you because they believe what you believe. They believe in you as a boss. They believe in your values. They believe in the way you treat them. They start to copy it, and they will solve problems along the way without asking your permission because they see that it is good for the company, and that they should work in this way. So I believe culture is everything. And it's a little like Jesus is also saying. He said, when you seek first the kingdom of God and its values, its principles, its culture, everything will flow basically from there. And he said, you don't have to worry that anymore. Because if you do the right things, then the result will follow. And I believe when you have built the right culture in your company and you help your people, and sure, you have some things you have to do. You have the people put on the right position in the right spot and whatever to help them flourish. But if people can work from their strength, from where they believe in, from what they do, they will give the best for their part. And that will immediately makes the difference from your department or for your company to your competitors because they will see that another type of people is working there, working really about caring, solutions, innovation, driving to the next level because they believe in it. And that makes all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So culture and leadership, really just driving it from the top down as much as you can, as a business leader, right? Because that you're kind of giving your people a North Star to shoot for. And it's a difference between, like you said, the North Star being the result versus the North Star being the process almost, right?
Yeah.
The North Star is this is how we work. This is how
Yes.
we accomplish our goals. The result will happen, right? If
Yes.
you do it that way, but then it's all about the process and how it works and how we're treating people along the way.
Yes.
Love it. So speaking of treating people, the subtitle of your book, which I don't have right in front of me, but it has to do with basically creating
Yes.
well-being in the world. I was a little like I wasn't sure what you meant by that when I saw the cover. Basically, I was like, what does he mean by bringing well-being? So you did devote, I believe you devoted an entire chapter to it, and you talk about it throughout. Can you just explain what you mean by that and that whole concept and theme?
Yeah. Well-being for me is more than only you can explain it with the biblical phrase shalom. The Jews wish you shalom, and that's not only peace. No, it's a whole way of living, of abundancy, of being loved. So, well-being for me is that a person on all its level, its spiritual level, emotional level, social level, financial level, flourish, and that it comes to its yeah destined position where that God has in mind for him. That he really becomes that person that he will God want him to be in every level. And that means that as a company, we should not only have work on financial capital, but we should also work on social capital, on human capital, on natural capital, and on spiritual capital. I think that are all forms of capital who are an indicator of well-being. So well-being only being narrow to the financial capital or your personal prosperity or the car you drive or the house you can afford, that's a very poor definition of well-being. We know that we can be lonely in a big car. We know it's lonely at the top. We know that when we don't have any relationships or would have all the money of the world, we just live in one island somewhere in the Pacific alone. That's not
Yeah.
well-being. Well-being is much more than that. So well-being has to do with the environment you live in. Well-being has to do with who the person you are. And I think companies are even more than churches equipped to work on all these different levels
Mhm.
because people are in the companies more than 40 hours a week. So they are trusted to you. Uh, they share their life and their heart with you and with their colleagues. So you have you can train them, you can develop them, you can have a personal talks with them or about their next chapter in life. You can contribute to their home and their well-being. You see many companies in the States do it as well. For example, Coca-Cola Consolidated, they have chaplains in their company. They have programs to to deal with the problems from their staff because they know when their marriage is good, they will perform better in the company. They have a quick response team when hurricanes come and hit the East Coast to restore the houses. So they understand that when we could care about the well-being of people on every level, uh, yeah, that's a completely different kind of life. And people value that, and people will give back on that, and you will become the preferred employer where they like to work. And that means that you get the best people out of your city or out of your branch or out of the university because people start to work for another perspective and in another way. And I think as an entrepreneur, we can solve this. And when we invest in one of these areas, for example, when I invest in a human being and I train him and I develop him, he will become a better employee, and he will contribute to my financial goals, and he will contribute to the social goals we have for society, and he will contribute to our creation goals, and he will contribute to our spiritual goals because he sees something from God in our leadership and in our lifestyle. And I think the challenge is to work on every individual capital in a way that it will automatically contribute to the other forms of capital as well. So if I would like to make a spiritual capital grow, I do that by loving people. And when I love people, I know that people will give back and that also my financial capital will grow and social capital will grow. And when I invest in a local city and I do something for imagine that an employee has something he would like to sponsor or he cares about, and I invest together with him. Society benefits, he benefits, the company benefits because it will give back to the company as well. It's the same when I invest in natural capital by bringing down my waste and bringing down the oak should we use and energy. It will also influence my financial capital because when I start to produce more efficiently, everyone benefits. And I think that is the challenge of an entrepreneur, not only to make money, but to work on these different forms of capitals. And when you invest in one, that the others multiply uh, flourish as well.
Yeah, I love that. One of the challenges here is there's a temptation, I think, to drift back into Babylonian thinking, even when you do this. So somebody could read your book, for example, and say, "Oh, this is great," and then almost, and you actually address this in the book as well. But you could almost take some of these programs and things as a like if they come out of your marketing budget, then your heart is wrong, right? Right?
Yes.
Like honestly. And so one of the interesting things is that really a Christian Jerusalem entrepreneur should be more than anyone intrinsically motivated to do these things. Um, our motivation for taking care of creation, our motivation for taking care of people, our motivation for being more spiritually healthy. These should be things that are not posters that we put up or initiatives that we do to be seen, but they should actually be consistent desires of our heart. And so I think that's an important, distinction to make here. It's like anybody can do this stuff, or like anybody can say that they're doing this stuff. And then far fewer people will actually do it, and then far fewer than that, I think, will do it for the right reasons. And do you think that trickles out into the marketplace? In other words, do you think that people can tell whether you really mean it or whether it's just part of your marketing campaign?
I think it's not that important for you as an entrepreneur because you as an entrepreneur, when you do it for marketing reasons, then this is important. But when you do it for God, or you believe God puts it on your heart, then you don't care about so much what others do because you feel responsible for what you do to God and to your staff. And and if others do it for a marketing reason, people will easily read that. I know after the financial crisis, all banks they came with an ethical agenda, and one of the presidents in the Netherlands of a big bank, he said, "Okay, now we need to behave differently and put the client first." And I know the whole. And then at the end, he had made only one sentence after I think 20 minutes speech. He said, "But at the end, also our stock value is important." And then everyone immediately dropped the whole ball, said, okay, nothing changed. It was just for window dressing.
Yeah.
So people will immediately have, if you walk the talk, that's most important. So your middle management is very important for the people because there they see what you believe and what you really live. There is your direct line manager. He communicates your values to your staff. And when he's not up to it, they will immediately see it and your whole approach will be gone. So when you only put it on the wall and you don't bring it in your management team and you don't bring it in your lower staff and in your lower managers, and that people see it in the, because the direct line manager is most important for people about their behavior because they try to copy his behavior. They want favor of him because he's direct responsible for that. They work daily base with him. Don't want to offend him. So his character and what he's doing, that is for them the key. And you as an entrepreneur, you work your way down, but yeah, it's most important that you really live it. They will immediately see it, and you will lose it all. That is, yeah. But at the
Yeah.
end, you don't do it for the others, or you don't do it for your business. You do it for yourself and for your relationship with God.
Yes. Yeah, and that probably trickles into family life too. Just the I deal a lot with people who have questions, about Christianity. I like to study philosophy and apologetics and things like that. And one of the big reasons why you see people, well, kids specifically, leave the faith when they grow up, is that their parents talked the talk, but they didn't walk the walk. And
Yeah.
so I think that just matters across the breadth of your entire life is actually doing and following through on the things that you say. Um, One of the things you address in the book that is a perennial problem for Christians, especially when you start to get into business, is the idea of poverty versus prosperity. And you talk about this, and I'm just curious, just your general thoughts on this. Like, is it more righteous to be poor than to be prosperous? Is it more right? Is the other more righteous? Are they both ditches on either side of the road? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think at the end, it's not about poverty or prosperity. I think prosperity is to prefer above poverty because I think there is no blessing in poorness and there is no blessing in poverty. Sure, sometimes poverty helps you to get back to the real world again when you live in a bubble or in a virtual world or you are lost. But in general, we all know that poor societies, there is no fun. It's not seen as a blessing. The Old Testament talks about blessing. It's about abundancy. Everything is available, the land of milk and honey, and that's okay. Where goes it wrong? You can also fall from the table there. If when you see the prosperity as your blessing and not the responsibility who comes with it. And I think a good example for this is the parable of the talents. One get 5 talents, one get 10 talents, and one get only 1 talent. The one with 10 talents, he multiplies and he get another 10. And the one with five also. And at the end, the master is saying, "You did a great job. You with 10, you get, you'll be my master and you get even more." And the socialist will say, "Oh, that's not fair. He already has a lot and now he gets even more." And
Yeah.
we should invest to that. But he doesn't say you get more because the blessing is in the prosperity or in what he gets. He said you get more because you could deal with it. You took responsible. You are responsible. So the blessing is in the responsibility to handle it well. And when you can handle something well and you can handle a lot of wealth very well, then people say, "Oh, I would like to bring it to this person because he can handle it well. He's trustworthy and he's responsible. And I wanted to deal with my stuff." And only the one who had only one, he said, "Yeah, I don't like this master. So I buried it." And then the master became very angry. So I think we are called to multiply, to create abundance, but do it in a good way, in a responsible way. And if the Lord is blessing you with a lot of money or with a lot of possessions, then the blessing is not the possessions or the money you have or the number of staff, but the responsibility He gave you. And I think when we can responsibility see as a blessing, wow, Lord, you entrusted me with so many people, with so much stuff. You must be really have confidence in me. I don't want to put you ashamed. I will do my best to do it and to multiply it and to give it further to new generations and to others. I think everyone want to have such kind of leader and such kind of society. Where it goes wrong, that we don't take this the responsibility as the blessing, but that we take the position as the blessing. We said we would like to accumulate it and hold it for ourselves. And there something goes wrong. But when we see it as a responsibility to share and to create and to bring prosperity all over the world and create well-being for others as well, I think this is the best way you can have.
Huh. Yeah, what an awesome perspective. The responsibility is the blessing, not the
Yes.
prosperity. I've never heard it put like that, but it makes so much sense because yeah, I mean that it seems like this is a one of those sort of immutable laws, if you will, of the universe because of the way God made it. Is that the more responsible you are, the more you will be given to manage. It seems like that's just always how it works, and I think for somebody just to stand back and realize that just the responsibility to handle it is the blessing itself. That's the next level. That's really, really fantastic. I have one more question for you, and then we'll get wrapped up. I very much appreciate your time today. This has been a fantastic interview. I mean, I'm gonna have to go back and listen and take notes. I mean, I've read the whole book, and there's notes from this podcast that I'm gonna have to go back and listen back to and take. It's been so helpful. Before I ask this last question, do you want to tell us, where can we find you online? What's the one thing you want people to do? Should we go buy the book? How should we get to know you better?
Okay. Yeah, buy the book. You can do it by Amazon. So that's the easy part. Uh, yeah, I live in Europe. So Eurofarmers is a ministry to help business people to flourish and to understand what God has for them in their life. So we can serve when people in Europe are listening, and go to www.eurofarmers.org and you will find all the information. Contact me, write me a mail, write the contact form, and we will help you and we will support you. If you are in the States, you have your own ministries, Faith Driven Entrepreneur, Faith Driven Investors, CBMC, FCCI, Kingdom at Work. I think there are many, Faith and Go. So go to your friends and ask them how to be a Christian in business.
Yeah, fantastic. That's excellent. And I'll put the appropriate links in the description so that everybody can go check those out when you get a chance. Okay, my last question, and this is a question that I normally ask when I do these interviews, but you also addressed it in the book, so I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Is either a morning routine or a daily routine that you do that kind of keeps you aligned, right? Keeps you going, keeps you working. A lot of us are disorganized. A lot of us don't start the day out right. And when the day doesn't start right, it seems like you're always playing catch up. So I find that the most effective leaders typically have something that they do to sort of keep them aligned. And let me just say one more thing. This is especially useful and needful for people like us, because when you leave sort of the bounds of traditional employment, they put all of those, they sort of make those demands for you in a way. It's like you have to be here at a certain time, you have to follow certain things. Well, at least for me, I'm in the office in my home, and so if I don't wake myself up, if I don't get myself going, ain't nobody else gonna do it. I have to do it myself. So I'm curious your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah. For me, most important, and I cannot encourage enough. I think for all, most important, it's an old phrase called silent time. And maybe you will like to call it differently nowadays, but I wake up at 6 o'clock. And the first thing I do is go to my chair, to my private library, a candle, a light, and have my time with God. And how does that look like? First, I look to my agenda for the forward day. So I looked to the yesterday and said, okay, Lord, who did I meet? What actions did I do? Are there still loose ends? Do I have to apologize? Do I have to forgive? Do I have to follow up with something? Is there something you tell me that needs extra? And many times, all kind of ideas drops. I write them in a note and I can handle them direct afterwards. Then I read a part of the scripture and I use Lectio Divina. So I read it twice. Then I underwrite the words that really touch me. And then I ask God, what do you want me to tell through this? And then I close by praying through the scripture. And for me, that is also awesome because I see then who God is. I see who am I. I see how he thinks about me. And then I do my intercessory prayers. I have a booklet. I write down names. People ask me to pray for them. I do my intercessory prayers. And then I look at my agenda for the coming day. And I look, what are the appointments? And God, would you like to speak already into me about these appointments? I dedicate them to God. I ask them to be involved. And then I go to my work. And that takes me half an hour, 45 minutes. And I do that every day. And the best ideas always I get in the morning when I do this. The biggest enemy is my phone. You know, if I start to watch my phone before I do this, I easily get lost because then WhatsApp comes in. Then I thought, oh, then I start up following with mail. And before you know, you are at work and the whole
Yeah.
schedule is blown.
Yeah.
So it's important first go to sit with God. Some people don't have a morning habit. Maybe they do it in the evening. I know people who drive to a construction place, they do it in their truck and have first their time with God. They pray in their truck, read there because then they don't have children. There's no one bothering that. They sit just in the truck before entering into the construction place. So everyone can do it in his own way. Some people like to walk in nature. Find your own way, but find a way. Find a way on a daily basis to connect with God. Another thing is find always three people who can speak in your life, where you are completely accountable to, where you share your hearts, where you share your thoughts, where you share your longings, your wrongdoings, everything, and who you allow to ask questions and to speak in your life. And when you have a life partner, know that your life partner is 50% of God's wisdom. So don't argue too much. Don't have too much a quarrel or law. Tell you what they're saying. They know you very well and listen to them. And I would like to share my life as well with other people. So be available for at least three people in some kind of discipleship relationship where you share your life with others because you learn a lot from them as well. So become part of a community and share on a heart level in places where you can do. I also have my own C group. We meet every bi-week, 1 hour and a half, Friday morning, 7 o'clock till 8:30. We pray together. We share our lives together. We share business challenges together. We share our private life together. And over time, they became my best friends. And I see them now more than a church, than my actually church, because it's going on a much deeper level and it's much more profound, this fellowship of friends. Find your places like that to feed you, to keep you on the track, because that's most important.
That's fantastic. Great advice. Great way to close it out. Wouter, I appreciate every bit of your time. I'll put all the links and everything. I hope that a lot of people end up finding this book and purchasing it through this path because it really changed my life. I mean that, and was a very, very helpful read. So thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it, and I hope to connect with you again in the future.
Thank you. Me too.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.